Welcome to the Holborn Assets channel. In this series, we look at major events in the history of economics that help to shape the world we live in today. If any of you think of an event we missed, or there's some topic on money and finance you'd like us to discuss, just leave a comment and it'll help us make the videos you want to see. J.P. Morgan was born on the 17th of April 1837 and was one of America's most important ever bankers, helping to lead the push for modernization that made it the economic powerhouse it is today. This is no rags to riches tale. Morgan's family was already rich and influential, and he was prepared well for his later life. His first step into banking was at age 20, where he worked in a branch of his father's merchant bank in London. In 1890, his father died and Morgan took control of the business. From then on, you could see his fingerprints in a huge range of American businesses, from creating the first billion-dollar company by merging various steel manufacturers into the United States Steel Corporation to helping form General Electric and AT&T. Morgan died in 1913, and his legacy still lives strong in the $2 trillion companies that bear his name, J.P. Morgan Chase and Morgan Stanley. Margaret Thatcher agreed to give Rhodesia its independence if a democratic election was held, and on the 18th of April 1980, the Republic of Zimbabwe was founded, led by the newly elected Robert Mugabe. Before independence, the economy was based on a few different sectors. Tobacco and chrome were the big exports, and there were other strong metal and mining industries. After 1980, the government introduced a new minimum wage, which made it almost impossible to fire anybody. This policy obviously backfired, as it became incredibly difficult to do business, with companies having much less incentive to employ new workers. The government also worried that new businesses would create a political threat to their ruling party, so there were very restrictive laws in place to prevent this. There was also a huge increase in public spending, in an attempt to create jobs and improve the healthcare system. A huge deficit grew and grew, and when private farms were confiscated by the government at the end of the 90s, the currency became incredibly unstable. The government also needed money to finance a war in the Democratic Republic of Congo, so they kept printing more of it. Inflation led to hyperinflation, and its peak in November in 2008, inflation was at a staggering 500 billion%, and prices were going up twice a day. In 2009, the currency was simply abandoned. They stopped printing it, and most people just used the US dollar, and some the South African rand. On the 19th of April 2011, Fidel Castro finally resigned as the first secretary of the Cuban Communist Party. He had stepped down as president in 2008, but in reality, his medical problems since 2006 had removed him from the limelight. He's a controversial leader, seen by some as a socialist visionary, by others as a communist dictator. On taking over control of Cuba in 1959, Castro began the process of nationalizing a huge amount of industries. He also redistributed land ownership and provided universal free healthcare and 0% income tax. This was hugely popular among the majority of Cubans, whose lives improved dramatically. The US disapproved of this communist regime and attacked the Cuban economy by bombing sugar fields and placing trade blocks on virtually all Cuban goods. The sugar industry was the lifeblood of the Cuban economy. These didn't do the full damage the US wanted, as the Soviet Union bought sugar from Cuba at a guaranteed price. However, with the collapse of the Soviet Union and a plummet in sugar prices at the start of the 90s, the country fell into economic crisis. There have been reforms post-Castro with a bigger focus on tourism. It seemed to be going well when Obama finally loosened many of the restrictions on the island, but Donald Trump has subsequently put many of those blocks back in place. So, that was the week. We're sure there were plenty of other important things going on, but we don't want to get carried away. Don't forget to subscribe to Holborn Assets, not just to learn more about the history of economics, but also for plenty of videos on making simple investments, starting saving, and just generally taking control of your finances.